The stage was prepared for what seemed like an ordinary afternoon on Loose Women. The ITV panel show, known for its spirited debates, bursts of laughter, and occasional fiery exchanges, had long thrived on unpredictability. Yet no one expected a routine topic to spiral into the sort of chaos that would leave audiences stunned and producers scrambling. And at the center of it all was Dame Judi Dench, who would ultimately leave the set in what many described as open disgrace. It was a type of television moment destined to be replayed, dissected, and debated for weeks. This clash was never just about differing viewpoints. It was about pride, about the friction between generations, and about the perilous nature of live broadcasting. What began as a straightforward exchange quickly evolved into a confrontation that revealed a side of Judi Dench audiences had never truly seen before, a side raw, irritated, and stripped of its usual grace. The discussion had started innocently. That day's topic was familiar territory, the kind of theme the Loose Women panel usually excelled at. Fame, legacy, and the way public figures manage, or fail to manage, the constant shift of modern culture. Judi Dench, the guest of honor, entered the studio carrying the weight of decades of celebrated performance. From Shakespearean stages to Hollywood blockbusters, her presence alone evoked admiration. Viewers tuned in expecting warmth, charm, and the reverence her name always commanded. But live television rarely follows a script. Denise Welch, one of the show's most outspoken panelists, had built a reputation on saying exactly what she thought, often without filter, and she wasn't about to let Judi glide through the conversation unchallenged. As Judi began sharing her perspective on the transformation of television, Denise abruptly cut across her mid-sentence. The interruption was sharp, deliberate, and dismissive. Gasps escaped from the audience, and even the other panelists visibly stiffened in their chairs. That was the moment the spark ignited. Judy's eyes narrowed, her posture shifted, and the weight of the insult was clear. The interruption wasn't perceived as simple debate. It was an affront, a challenge to her authority. With clip precision, Judi snapped back. Her retort, cold and edged with irritation, reverberated across the studio. It shocked the panel. It shocked the crowd. And for many, it shattered the carefully polished image of the elegant Judi Dench they thought they knew. From that instant, the tension only grew sharper. The studio's atmosphere shifted dramatically, almost as if a curtain had been pulled back. Viewers at home later described the scene as uncomfortable, even hostile, like watching a car crash unfold in slow motion. What started as a spirited discussion between panelists suddenly transformed into a duel. Judi Dench, a woman who had long commanded reverence, was now face to face with someone who had no intention of bowing to her reputation. It wasn't merely an interruption anymore. It was the opening strike in what would quickly become one of the most humiliating confrontations in daytime television in recent memory. Once the spark was lit, there was no turning back. The clash became symbolic, Judi Dench and Denise Welch standing as two embodiments of entirely different eras. On one side sat Judi, the grande dame of theater, refined through decades of acclaim, honors, and ovations. Her presence carried the weight of Shakespearean tragedy, royal recognition, and Hollywood prestige. For Judi, her opinions were not simply views. They carried the weight of authority, as though they were cultural truths. On the other side was Denise Welch, bold, brash, unapologetic, and unapologetically modern, a longtime fixture of Loose Women. She had carved her role not by showing deference, but by directly confronting ideas others shied away from. Denise wasn't swayed by Judi's knighthood, her trophies, or the aura of respectability surrounding her career. Instead, she played to the immediacy of live television, speaking the way modern audiences crave, blunt, unfiltered, and provocative. As the back and forth grew more heated, it became apparent this was no personal disagreement. It was an ideological clash, Judi representing tradition, hierarchy, and reverence, while Denise embodied disruption, rebellion, and fearless candor. And then came Denise's most cutting remark. Looking directly at Judi, she accused her of being out of touch, of failing to understand the shifting expectations of today's culture, and of clinging to a past that no longer held the same weight. The words, delivered with open disdain rather than polite respect, landed like daggers across the table. The audience reacted instantly. Some gasped, appalled at the audacity of challenging a national treasure so brazenly. Others clapped and cheered, emboldened by Denise's refusal to defer. Meanwhile, social media erupted in real time. Twitter timelines filled with posts, some rallying behind Denise's stance with, "She's right, Judi doesn't get any more," while others condemned her, writing, "How dare Denise Welch talk down to Dame Judi Dench?" The atmosphere inside the studio mirrored that divide, with panelists squirming uncomfortably in their seats, unsure of how to navigate the storm unraveling live before them. For Judi, the humiliation was plain to see. She had built an entire career on commanding respect, her mere presence enough to silence critics. Yet on this stage, during a mid-afternoon talk show, none of that mattered. Denise Welch wasn't backing down, and worse, the audience wasn't unanimously siding with Judi. This wasn't polite television anymore. It was generational warfare, exposed in front of a live audience and magnified through millions of screens at home. The studio's energy grew more volatile with each exchange. What had begun as lively chatter spiraled into raw confrontation. Viewers described the scene as riveting but painful, like witnessing history unravel in real time. Social media fueled the fire, with clips spreading across TikTok and Twitter within minutes. This wasn't an ordinary loose women moment. It was a cultural flashpoint. As the pressure mounted, Judi's responses grew sharper. Her tone hardened, her posture stiffened, her remarks clipped with cold precision. She was no longer participating in debate. She was defending her throne. But on Loose Women, there is no throne. There is only the table where every voice holds equal ground. That was Denise Welch's advantage. She seized a moment, unflinching, amplified her voice until it carried over to gasps and murmurs. Denise didn't soften her stance. She accused Judi directly of talking down others, of failing to connect with modern audiences, and of relying on status rather than substance. The accusations were brutal, pointed, and impossible to ignore. Gasps filled the studio as the audience reacted, some applauding her candor, while others recoiled in shock at the perceived disrespect. At home, reactions mirrored the divide. One side praised Denise for fearlessly challenging an icon, while the other expressed outrage at the public dismantling of a national treasure. But for Judi, the damage was already done. For decades, she had cultivated an image of grace, composure, and untouchable dignity. Yet here, in front of a daytime audience, that carefully constructed image cracked. The mask slipped, and what viewers saw was not the regal figure they revered, but a woman rattled, defensive, and suddenly vulnerable. During the commercial break, the tension behind the cameras reached breaking point. Producers scrambled, whispering urgently, trying to calm the situation before it spiraled further. Reports later suggested Judi Dench refused to remain on set unless Denise Welch issued an apology. Her voice, cold and clipped, echoed across the studio. "This is unacceptable. I will not sit here and be disrespected." But Denise was unshaken. True to her reputation, she stood her ground, with arms folded and her expression defiant. She dismissed the demand outright. "I said what I said," she snapped, refusing to yield even under mounting producer pressure. The standoff was brutal. Judi, furious and humiliated, demanding reparation, and Denise, unwavering in her refusal to bend. In the middle were producers, trapped in a nightmare scenario, forced to decide between appeasing a national treasure or allowing the chaos to run its course. When the cameras returned, the decision was visible instantly. Judi Dench did not reappear. The show carried on, but the empty seat at the table spoke louder than any statement. The presenter announced flatly that the program would continue without her, leaving both the studio audience and viewers at home in stunned disbelief. Murmurs spread across the room. Tension hung thick in the air, and social media lit up within minutes. Clips of Judi storming away circulated widely, memes appeared, and headlines practically wrote themselves. For Judi, the fallout was catastrophic. Producers had chosen continuity over her pride, allowing the program to proceed with Denise still at the table while she remained absent. To viewers, that decision revealed everything about where the power truly lay. Judi's walkout wasn't framed as an irreplaceable loss. It was treated as an inconvenience, and that, for a woman whose name had long been synonymous with prestige and authority, was perhaps the most devastating humiliation of all. When the broadcast returned from a break, the atmosphere inside the studio was unrecognizable. Viewers expected Judi Dench to return, perhaps with her trademark smile or a witty remark to smooth over the tension. Instead, her chair sat empty, a glaring void at the table where a national treasure had moments earlier commanded attention. The announcement was curt and clinical. "We'll be continuing without Dame Judi." No apology, no soft explanation, just the stark fact she was gone. The audience reacted instantly. Gasps rippled across the room, some applauding Denise Welch for holding her ground, while others whispered in disbelief. Backstage, tempers flared. Reports suggested Judi, furious at what she saw as an unforgivable insult, demanded an on-air apology from Denise before she would return. Denise, with arms crossed and chin raised, stood firm. She refused outright, her defiance clear for everyone to witness. Producers faced an impossible choice: appease Judi, the international star whose very name symbolized prestige, or keep Denise, the fiery panelist who embodied the spirit of loose women. They chose Denise, and that decision cut deeper than any insult. For Judi, the humiliation wasn't just that she had walked away. It was that the show carried on without her, unshaken, as though her absence was little more than a disruption to scheduling. The cameras lingered on Denise, who now commanded the table with visible confidence. Every word she spoke was magnified by the empty seat beside her. Screenshots of that vacant chair exploded across Twitter and Instagram, captions ranging from "Where's Judi?" to "She really walked out." Within minutes, memes appeared. Royal thrones left vacant. Judi's face superimposed with dramatic music on TikTok edits. What should have been a guest appearance had become a collapse in real time. Judi Dench, once a guest of honor, was reduced to an absence louder than any presence she could have maintained. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. By the time the episode finished airing, news outlets were already preparing headlines. Some tabloids labeled it "The Day Dame Judi Lost Her Cool." Others went further, declaring it the most embarrassing on-air walkout in loose women history. For Judi, the damage was immense. Her carefully maintained public image, one built on poise, dignity, and grace, was suddenly under siege. She had long been admired as the actress who carried herself like royalty, but the footage told another story. Clips showed Judi scowling, defensive, and visibly rattled by a panelist unafraid to challenge her authority. Critics seized the moment. Columns shifted focus away from her celebrated acting legacy and instead highlighted what they framed as arrogance. She wanted respect, one columnist wrote, but she demanded it rather than earned it, and when it wasn't given, she walked away. For an actress whose reputation had thrived on universal admiration from audiences and peers, this was the harshest criticism of all. What made it worse was the reaction of younger viewers, the very demographic fueling social media. Instead of rushing to defend her, many mocked her, dismissing Judi as out of touch and fragile. Denise Welch, in contrast, was hailed as bold and refreshingly authentic. To them, Judi wasn't a revered legend anymore. She was a relic unable to withstand the bluntness of modern television. The contrast was brutal. For decades, Judi Dench had been upheld as Britain's grand dame, a figure beyond reproach. Yet, in a single afternoon, that aura shattered. Her exit wasn't seen as a dignified refusal of someone unwilling to engage. It was interpreted as weakness, as a crack in the armor of a woman who had built her career on control. And reputations, once fractured in the public eye, are rarely restored. Behind the scenes, industry insiders whispered about what the incident truly revealed. Judi Dench, once untouchable, was suddenly vulnerable. Executives who had long courted her appearances now hesitated. If a single daytime panel could rattle her so deeply, how would she handle the relentless scrutiny of live interviews, press tours, or unscripted events? The silence from her usually vocal representatives spoke volumes. No statement was released, no attempt at damage control was made. For days, Judi's absence from the media only fueled speculation that she had been blindsided by the backlash. Meanwhile, Denise Welch capitalized on the moment. Her defiance on live television was replayed endlessly, celebrated as an act of courage. She gave brief but pointed comments to the press, insisting she had only spoken the truth. Viewers rewarded her authenticity with surging support, praising her for refusing to bow to celebrity status. The power dynamic had shifted dramatically. One panelist from a daytime talk show had stood toe-to-toe with Britain's most decorated actress and walked away triumphant. The cultural narrative turned swiftly. Judi was no longer portrayed as a venerable national treasure, but as a symbol of outdated entitlement. Denise, on the other hand, became the unlikely voice of the public, direct, unapologetic, and unafraid of titles or reputation. Hashtags trended for days, with phrases like hashtag Team Denise and hashtag empty chair overtaking timelines. Every meme, every clip, every headline compounded the same story. Judi Dench had faced a rare public challenge and faltered. For Judi, the realization was devastating. This wasn't just a disagreement on a talk show. It was a public unraveling. The very foundation of her legacy, built on respect and reverence, had cracked before a live audience. And once the myth of invincibility breaks, even legends cannot easily repair it. In the weeks that followed, the shadow of that empty chair refused to fade. Every article about Judi Dench seemed to reference it. Every interview request carried the unspoken question. Would she address the walkout? Yet Judi remained silent. Her refusal to speak only amplified the perception of weakness, as though she had no defense strong enough to counter what millions had already witnessed. Silence, once her tool for maintaining mystery and dignity, now worked against her. Producers, agents, and even fellow actors noted the shift. Invitations slowed. Where once Judi's name guaranteed prestige, it now carried risk. Would she walk off again? Would she demand special treatment? Quietly, opportunities began to slip away, handed instead to younger stars eager to embrace the chaos of modern media. Judi, for all her accolades, seemed stranded in an era that no longer existed. Denise Welch, meanwhile, rode the wave of newfound relevance. Clips of her clash with Judi continued to trend, and she leaned into her role as the unapologetic truth-teller. Bookings increased, her social media following grew, and her reputation as a fearless voice was cemented. What started as an uncomfortable exchange became the defining moment of her career, elevating her beyond the daytime panel and into the national spotlight. For Judi Dench, the humiliation was permanent. The incident on Loose Women was not dismissed as a minor misstep, but remembered as a defining collapse. She had walked into the studio as Britain's most respected actress and left as a cautionary tale. And in the unforgiving world of modern celebrity, that transformation was irreversible. Legends, it seemed, were only untouchable until the moment they weren't. In the end, the clash between Judi Dench and Denise Welch was never just about a single argument. It was about shifting power, about a new media landscape that no longer bowed automatically to fame or legacy. Judi represented tradition, an era where status commanded silence from critics. Denise embodied the present, where blunt honesty and defiance resonated louder than titles or honors. When the two collided, the result was inevitable. Tradition fractured under the weight of raw authenticity. For Judi, the episode marked a moment her aura of untouchable grace slipped away. No matter how many awards she had won, no matter how beloved her past performances remained, the image of her walking out defeated lingered. It became shorthand for a fall from grace, proof that even the most celebrated figures could falter when faced with unfiltered reality. For Denise, it was vindication. She had stood unshaken against one of Britain's most powerful icons and emerged stronger than ever. Her career gained momentum. Her voice carried more weight, and her reputation as someone who spoke without fear was solidified. In the court of public opinion, she hadn't just survived, she had won. The empty chair on that stage became more than a symbol of one dramatic afternoon. It was a moment audiences realized that no one, not even Dame Judi Dench, was beyond reproach. Respect, once assumed, had to be earned again. And as the cameras faded that day, one truth remained clear. Legends fall, but challengers rise. And sometimes, it takes just a single confrontation to rewrite everything.